We're going to get into it. We're going to get into it today. Is it time to go all in? Is it the next phase of the market? We'll break it all down for you, do some trading, all that good stuff today. Before we get started, I want to thank our sponsor, and that is Tangem. This is where your self-custody journey can begin. Jump over to the Tangem website right now. Get in. It's a secure crypto and hardware wallet. If you're brand new to self-custody, this should be your first stop on doing it because it is one of the best tools out there for keeping assets off of centralized exchanges where you control them, and it's very easy to set up. Super fast, super secure. Some of the best tools that I like about this is the smart private key backup. A lot of platforms out there do not offer this. This is one of the best ones. So check out Tangem. Use our link down below. It's going to give you some additional discounting. Get the 3-card set. You're on your way to self-custody. I want to play a clip to open up. This, of course, is Cramer talking about, who's left to sell to? Take a look.
Because at today's lows, we reached that hold your nose and buy moment where the market got so oversold, so negative, that it really doesn't matter what happens. Right now, the bulls are at 30.4%. Just so few bulls. Neutral 17.6%. And a phenomenal 52% of the people believe that the market's going to go down, maybe big. They're bearish. And that's a highly unusual skew. It means they're far more bearish than bulls. That matters because when just about everyone's already bearish, there's nobody left to sell.
All right. It is kind of a bearish market. I'm going to bring in Evan Aldo, and he's going to join us here. Evan, first of all, how are you, man? Doing good?
Living the dream, man. Always an honor to
Living
talk
the
to you, Paul.
dream. You're in a different city, a different port every night, port of call, as they say.
Well, I was at the same place the last time we spoke, but
I know, but the point is that
Yeah.
you're traveling
Yeah.
around a lot,
Yeah.
which is good to see, man. Hey, listen, I'm following you out here on X at Evan Aldo, and you put up this tweet, and it says, this one was on March 15th. There's a strong argument to make that Bitcoin has bottomed. All right. Then
Yep.
you give me another tweet on the 19th, and it says live trading, 7,500 in profits. Why I doubled down on my Bitcoin short. So are you long or are you short? Where are you on this thing?
So yeah, I think there's obviously a live trading is going to be more of like swing trading or day trading, situations. Obviously,
Yeah.
that's, higher risk, more short-term situation. But the macro is, I do stand by that, that first tweet, obviously. The macro is pretty strong on Bitcoin. And I think there is a strong argument to make that we've bottomed. But obviously, in the short term, I do think you could potentially, go down farther. And I think that a lot of this year is going to be more of an accumulation phase, kind of boring sideways. I mean, you may be
Right.
between 60 and 70K for the majority of this year.
Do you think we're, because this is one thing that has happened for a while, and that is that we're seeing so much movement to the sidelines. There was a post by Kobe talking about the S&P 500, the NASDAQ, 64 billion down in the last 3, okay? You look at that, and then if you look at the percent of assets under management, this is a 3-month outflow. This is up like -5, so biggest since Q1 2023. Their ending statement is the one I'm looking at. Investors are and have rushed to the sidelines. So do you feel everybody's there? Because gold's moving down, silver absolutely cratered, and then Bitcoin has been up and down and back here today at 69. So if you compare the S&P with Bitcoin right now, what's the better play?
Probably Bitcoin. Let's talk about it. So if we go on my chart right here, here's Bitcoin versus S&P 500. Similar to that first chart that I posted on Twitter. Obviously, Bitcoin versus S&P 500 generally looks pretty similar to Bitcoin versus USD. You have this nice bottom signal right here. You see your EMAs, they've come into the gray. Usually when they come into the gray, arguably without FTX, you would have hit the bottom in June of 2022, where you bottomed out on ETH as well back then. And the same thing, back here in, this bear market in December. So it generally bottoms out earlier against its USD pair and against this S&P 500 pair. So I think there's a strong argument to make that you could have bottomed here. However, I think you got time though. It could be sideways, and you could see the majority of this year doing something along these lines. And we've been in sideways areas before. Look at right here. There's many times where this consolidated. Look at 2019. And this bear market is the last bear market where you topped on apathy before that bear market. This high is kind of similar to this area over here. You had your drop down. Let's trace this drop down back from 2019, and we're not going to obviously not counting the black swan event there, but that would align with your bottom. And then I could see instead maybe if something geopolitically happens, sure, you could have one last wick down, later this year. But I think you're going to be a snooze fest, crab market, boring for some months. That's my view on this. And the same thing on your USD pair, as you can see right here. I think it's going to be very range bound, very, very range bound for a lot of this year. So yeah.
All right. Range bound for most of the year. You don't anticipate a breakout after clarity at all?
That's the earliest I could see a breakout. That's potentially the earliest I could see, depending on when that does happen. You follow that a little bit more than me. I would ask you, when's your estimate on that?
Timing is real important. We got a big video we're getting ready to release that will talk about this. It'll go in detail because there's a lot happening right now. Remember Tim Scott this week, I don't know if you saw it, but Tim Scott, who's the head of the Senate Finance Banking Committee, he said Friday he was expecting stuff on his desk. Well, that, my friend, is today. So could happen sooner than later. And the question will be if they get a deal versus getting it passed, because I think it could go through pretty quickly. So once it does hit that, I think the real question is do we get a big pump and then just a retracement down because of all the macro question marks right now? Because that's the question right now that everybody's asking. When should I go all in right now? When?
Go all in? I think the best thing now is DCA from now to
No,
October.
you cannot say that, Evan. No DCA.
Okay.
We are past DCA time.
Oh,
We are
boy.
at all in. The chips are on the table. I've got them in front of me right now, and we're ready. The
I
question
got a
is,
better answer. I got a low 60s, probably low 60s. That's what I
low
would say.
60s is what you're pointing at. Okay, all right.
Yeah.
Low 60s on Bitcoin. There you have it, guys. All in at low 60s. Not financial advice, by the way. I'm not telling you to go all in. Do not take a mortgage on your home. Do not put all your stuff in one place. I know I don't have to tell you guys this, but just in case, don't do that. But that's the point I want to get at. I want to go to a clip here from Tom Lee, because now we're going to talk about ETH versus the S&P, and I want you to tell me what you think after this. Take a look.
And he's provided an analysis to us that says Ethereum in the last few months, especially since October, is really mirroring what happened to the S&P 500 in 2011 and what happened to the S&P 500 in 1987. There's a 93% correlation to what Ethereum's doing today to what the S&P did in 1987. If you apply that same forecast, Ethereum would have bottomed on March 7th. And if we're correlating this to the 2011 episode, Ethereum is bottoming today. Using his analysis, we think we're at the bottom or exiting the crypto winter now. Another way to think of it is this measure called realized price, and looking at the average purchase price of Ethereum. On the Ethereum blockchain, the average purchase price is $2,241 for Ethereum. The two most recent lows, in 2022 and last year, Ethereum traded at a 39% discount to the realized price and a 21% discount in 2025. Your average position was in a loss of 21%. Currently, we're at 22%. So we're at the level where in 2025, Ethereum started to turn higher.
Wow. Okay. Well, first of all, Tom Lee and his analyst have called bottoms before this period of time on ETH. So everybody knows that. I don't think we have to tell you that sometimes the emperor has no clothes kind of thing, but that's kind of the situation. I don't know if first of all, going all the way back to 87, that was a cataclysmic event. Now, could this thing that we're dealing with now around oil and what's going on in the Middle East, could that be a cataclysmic event? I just don't know if it's as big. It does affect a lot of things. How would you trade ETH versus the S&P right now?
I think there's a strong argument to make, just like Bitcoin, that it's bottomed out against the S&P 500. See right here, very similar. Like the problem is that people would not like it is because it's at the same area it was against the S&P 500
Uh,
back in June of 22 at that low. So
I
obviously
see.
this bull market didn't give us much. So obviously one of two things is going to happen. Either you get like more of a lackluster bull market and you just come back up to these areas or something, or maybe even worse. I don't think that. I have a soft spot for ETH, I'll tell you that much. So I think eventually, after all this consolidation, especially with better monetary policy this time around, we could talk, there's going to be less cuts than anticipated, but still, you're not in QT anymore. You could see a jump on ETH versus, S&P 500, maybe almost like this in this bull run if you can kind of reclaim itself. But I
Right.
think in the short term, this probably is bottomed against the S&P 500. I would assume in the very short term, you'll probably dilly-dally and consolidate a lot and then eventually break upward, probably sometime in quarter 4 of this year or sometime in 2027. So, but yeah, it looks very good against the S&P 500, just like Bitcoin against the S&P 500 right now.
Do you think the S&P is set for another 10% down or what?
Most likely, I think the S&P 500 will come down more. I think crypto will hold up against it. I think we've seen most of the blood on crypto, just like we saw in 2022, as long as you don't count the last drop down to 15K for Bitcoin. So if we look at the S&P 500, it's a pretty obvious, typical,
Yeah.
correction that we've seen. We may get a little bounce in the short term at 6%. I would guess that you may retrace 10 to like 14% here, kind of these peaks, over here, but this is not that bad compared to what we've seen. I mean, this is a 8% more correction. I mean, even if Bitcoin goes down another, I think 20% from here, you're not going to make a lower low. So
Mm.
this is
Yeah.
definitely not the end of the world, situations.
Okay.
Um, I think this should be done, within a few months with Iran. I wouldn't say you're going to have crazy inflation. I think people are getting a little bit overly afraid. But I think that the energy bull run will go on for, things like XLE, the energy ETF.
Yeah.
I think that'll go on for, maybe a few more months. I think by summer we should be, kind of done with that and then well on our way.
But Kevin O'Leary is now jumping in on this. He says there's a ton of pressure and it has to resolve soon. Take a look.
It takes about 3 months of gasoline, or at least oil, a barrel price above 95 to get into that $6 to $7 gasoline price. That's the freak out price for the consumer. We're nowhere near there. We're just 20 plus days into this conflict.
Gasoline, I mean, that feels like, I don't know, the 70s level crisis.
Yeah, well, that's what the numbers say. I mean, if you actually keep the per barrel price, the input price to the refinery, north of $95 for 3 months, that's where you get to historically. Now, I think the president knows that. I think the administration knows that. I think midterms know that. I think every politician, both sides of the aisle, know that. So there's a lot of pressure to resolve this sooner than later. And secondly, but it's not good enough to resolve it and stop bombing Iran. You have to resolve the Strait of Hormuz.
Totally agree with that one. Oil is the big issue here. When you talk about that, and then what Leary's talking about, look at this right here. Hyperliquid now trading more oil and gold and silver than crypto. This is insane. Are you trading oil on Hyperliquid?
I just bought X. I'm not like an huge oil trader. I've just bought XLE on spot that
Yeah,
I've
all right.
held
So you're
since
going
January. So
going with the
yeah, I'm
simple
more of a
route.
Bitcoin trader. Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Well, Hype, we got a chart because Hype is a good example of some explosion. When over time, the real question is does it stagnate here or does it continue to fly based on all its new opportunities that it's drilled into, with especially around regulation? Do you have a chart on Hype?
Oh yeah.
All right,
Let's take a
let's take
look
a
right
look.
here. So hype, when we get into this, I mean, you see good momentum changes right here. I like this, these EMAs coming into the brights. I mean, this is the only thing that's really outperformed Bitcoin, in the last few months here, really this year. There's not too many. So, I think it could generally keep going. I mean, you have a huge speed bump, coming in a little bit, between 50 to 45. So, and you got your RSIs starting to come down. I mean, I wouldn't say it's the most bullish thing in the world, but you probably got at least a little bit more. I think the real question is, can you break above that 50 area? I would say with Bitcoin potentially being in more of a crab market, not doing anything too crazy anytime soon, probably something like this would happen. You continue to consolidate or something. It's hard to say on this. You kind of got to see what happens once you get up to like 45, because if things look bearish, between 45 to 50, it's probably going to roll over. I mean, you have a potential trend reversal sign here. So I would be like slightly bullish at best. Like there's no major topping signs, and I think you'll come up higher, but I don't know if you're going to break, to
Yeah.
a new all-time high. So,
Okay.
yeah.
You don't think we get all-time highs out of it, at least not anytime soon.
It's so tough to say. I mean, you
Is it one
could,
of
but
would this be in one of your long-term bags though? Like a
yeah,
Solana, an Ethereum?
yeah, it probably will be as long as it continues to outperform Bitcoin. I think that's the good bet on it. So I think it is strong. I mean, I think if a lot of interest, people lose
That's good.
interest in trading oil, there's going to be competitors and other things coming towards it. But
Yeah.
for now, I like it. Yeah.
Let's talk about World Liberty Fi. This is another token that we're watching right here. Here was a tweet, and it says value proposition in bribes, the Trump inner circle. Basically, what happens is if you want access to get in, you can become a validator, a super node, I should say. Um, but it's a significant amount of money here. We're like talking 40 plus million to get this done. So 50 million will fee, approximately 5 million at current price. You're talking about a lot of money to get in there into the old boys, the good old boys club. My question, has this become an access token into the inner circle of Trump?
I mean, when we look at the only thing I could really do on this is look at the chart, and the chart's not too attractive at the moment.
That's
Generally, just
bloody.
yeah, it just comes down. The thing I'm looking at is look at the daily right here. See how these EMAs turn from like
Yeah.
gray to bright, and also your money flow came from red to green here. So I would be looking at that, and that's probably not going to be. It would align with that theory more in the middle of this year or a few months from now, potentially a buy there, and then you could ride this up a little bit. But as of right now, I wouldn't touch this. So yeah.
All right. Well, anyway,
Yeah.
hey, winners of the Iranian war right now, we got Eric and Don, and there's a little drone company that they're working with. This is Jared Kushner's plans to reconstruct the Gulf. You got Witkoff also involved on this, on some real estate deals. So there's the plan right there. Remember, Steve Witkoff, this is the special envoy right now. So he knows where all the deals being made. Then you got the Witkoff boys over here. They're the equivalent of the Trump boys over here with their super power player over here, Jared Kushner. And he knows where all the bodies are buried. But they have moved into a little drone company that we are tracking, and it's this company right here. It's called Power US, Power Us, Power US. This is a new drone that they're manufacturing to deal with these super drones that are coming out of Iran, costing us like $1 million a missile to shoot down a $20,000 drone. That's like two iPhones right there. Look at that. Can you can you
Yeah,
see that?
it's small. Yeah, tiny.
That's a little
Yeah, I
bitty
see it.
thing.
Yeah.
If these
Wow.
guys, and they're publicly traded right now, so if they are rolling, the opportunity here, if you look at their ticker right now, would this be one you'd do anything with, or you'd say, nah, it's too speculative and it's definitely too weak. But what if they get a government contract?
Yeah, I think there's potential now that I see it, what it actually looks like, man. I mean, it's wild. I mean, when we look at this chart, you see the momentum. So you see these gray EMAs right here in your 2-day, they're turning bright. So there's definitely a lot of potential. It's similar to kind of that hype chart a little bit. I think it's at least going to get up to $7 here. If you can break above there, you got more moment, you got more potential. I could see 11. It's tough to say when you're in price discovery mode, but like if a lot of people are thinking what you're thinking, I mean, 75 mil market cap, I mean, the sky is the limit.
Yeah,
Yeah.
if you look at the idea, at least, of where AVAX has been, and now you have this partnership right here, Animoca and Ava Labs now partnering within it. And if you look at this right here, the collaboration will intentionally focus on the Middle East and Asia.
AVAX has been sketchy lately, in terms of the charts, made a lower
I
low, as
like
you
the
can
word
see.
sketchy.
Yeah, it's just a sketchy chart, man. I think that's why, yeah, I made a lower low. That's not good. I mean, you're trying to, I mean, as long as you can kind of hold like these areas, I guess there's some hope. I mean, I'd love to see it above $10. You're not even at $10. That's the technical issue, and you're rejecting from this area. And Yeah, I would guess. I think after a long consolidation, hopefully we kind of continue forward here. I think what's important is to look at this on its Bitcoin pair and see what could potentially happen. And I mean, you generally just bled against Bitcoin. However, what you could do here, what I like to do a lot, especially in
Yeah.
environments like this, it's bled so much against Bitcoin, I have to mess with my thing doesn't even want to take this, show me this trade. But essentially, if it makes a lower low against Bitcoin, I would get out. I would get out quickly. But you could try to ride this up against Bitcoin and potentially, sky's the limit here. It could come back a lot. But when you look at charts like this, when it just only really goes down against Bitcoin, except this one jump in
Yeah.
at the end of 23, like it's sketchy. That's all I'm gonna say. It's
Less
sketchy.
and less. So that's a big of a
Yeah.
reach. Okay. Let's get into the Solana chart. Give me a little bit of, first of all, I know this is one of your forever products, or not forever, but nothing's forever, but one of your
Yeah.
long-term holds.
Yep.
How would you reposition on Solana right now? Once we get into possibly, okay, bottom's in, it's market up, we're all in. How would you position on Solana?
So I think that Solana probably has hit a bottom. There's a good chance that it may have hit a bottom, $67, especially if Bitcoin and ETH have bottomed out, which I think it's a good chance they have. I do think it's going to be long consolidation, like a lot of other things. I think you're going to come down, maybe retest these areas. That's what you may see for a lot of this year, boringness, potential snooze fest. But after that, potentially coming in, a lot more. So I do think that I do think Solana is going to see, rides up, not this early, not
Yeah.
in 2026, but maybe $200 sometime in early 2027, and then so on and so forth. If we look at Solana versus Bitcoin right here, and this looks pretty good as well, this area right here, I would like to hold this low on Solana versus Bitcoin. If it does lose this low on Solana versus Bitcoin, then I would be more fearful that you'd come down farther. But as long as you hold this, I'm good with it. I think this is you just got to pay attention here. Like it's one of those trades where, you buy some Solana, and if it drops another 14%, let's say against Bitcoin, you take that little loss, you convert to Bitcoin again, because it's probably going to break down farther. But I think that it rhymes a little bit with, these areas over here, this kind of even 2023 a little bit, where you just outperformed Bitcoin for a while. I think you're going to see consolidation. Like this was a giant consolidation point. So you could see, boringness against Bitcoin for maybe into early next year, and then you jump up. That's what my educated guess would be right there.
Okay. All right. Cool. So out of this, for an all-in portfolio, what coins would you pull on digital assets? Let's just go digital assets. Where would you be getting ready to go all in once you feel that trigger occurs? And you're saying that it's a low 60 Bitcoin.
Probably, yeah. I mean, digital, other than Bitcoin, Ethereum, absolutely. Solana, absolutely. XRP, it's honestly the higher market cap ones that have stood the test of time.
What
Are a lot
hype
of
though
big
would be there or no?
Hype is a smaller position, but yes, that would
Okay.
be. That definitely would be. And then whatever has momentum, towards the end of this year, middle of this year, whatever gains the momentum, it could be some new ones too.
Huh.
If AVAX, we talked about AVAX, if that could get some momentum back, then potentially that could be one. So yeah,
I mean,
other
gold
things.
and silver though. Geez, look at the gold chart. This thing is down off of 5,400, trading now at 4,500. You look at silver off of the 117 high, now trading at $69, basically half price. Wow. In a very short period of time. So all of those wins, if you didn't get out of the metals, you're stuck right now. And then if you didn't rotate into Bitcoin, which is currently at 69, I mean, you might have rotated in at this little zone right here, this last 15, 20 days, which might end up being somewhere around the bottom. That was 63.8, but we saw this dip right here, which was the 60K, that we saw back on the 6th of February. So I don't know. Interesting stuff for sure. Evan, always good seeing you. Thank you so much. You guys follow Evan over on Evan Aldo on YouTube. You guys can find him. We put up his YouTube so many times, but he is the guy if you want to get into a trading course, learn a little bit more about how to do entries and exits, all that kind of stuff. This is your buddy.
If you like this video, hit like and subscribe, drop a comment down below, and also join our free private member group. The link is in the description.